The Democratic convention was a success, well-produced, thematic, entertaining speeches. The only hiccup, in my opinion, the disrespect shown to President Biden by having the 81-year-old speak after midnight on Monday. The Democratic convention was a success, well-produced, thematic, entertaining speeches. The only hiccup, in my opinion, the disrespect shown to President Biden by having the 81-year-old speak after midnight on Monday. The vice president accepted her party's nomination with a poised and at times forceful speech. Democrats left town with a sense of confidence not seen since Republicans left Milwaukee. For Harris, the task is to maintain her momentum when finally taking questions from the media and voters. She's not been on the record in a free-flowing manner since entering the race. For Trump, the challenge is to maintain self-control amidst a sea change in the race. His frustration with her ascendancy is palpable. D has always been for Donald, not for discipline. And as Doug Sosnick recently reminded in his latest missive, Trump has never enjoyed majority support as either a candidate or as an incumbent. He has a high floor but a low ceiling. When he won in 2016, it was with the benefit of some robust third-party candidates allowing him victory with just 45.9% of the popular vote to Hillary Clinton's 48%. According to 538's most recent polling averages, Trump is currently at 43.6% to Harris's 47.3%. And as of yesterday, RFK Jr. was drawing 4.6% of the vote. But now he's dropped out and given Trump his blessing in the competitive states.
All right, guys, let's dive into a segment from CNN where one of their more balanced anchors shed light on the chaotic state of the Democratic Party right now. The anchor, who are considered one of the rare neutral voices in today's media, discussed the growing alliance between RFK Jr. and Donald Trump and the implication for the 2024 election. According to reports, Kamala Harris outright refused to engage with RFK Jr., while Trump saw an opportunity and discussed potential collaboration in key swing states. And here's where things get interesting. Trump's frustration at suddenly facing Harris instead of Biden is entirely justified. Imagine spending hundreds of millions of dollars preparing to challenge one candidate only for the Democrat to swap them out at the last minute. Legal? Sure. Fair? Absolutely not. Now, let's break this down. The Democratic Party's last-minute switcheroo isn't just a strategic gamble. It's a sign of desperation. For months, Trump's campaign has focused its fire on Biden, only for Harris to be thrust into the spotlight with little time to pivot. And here's the kicker. The media's silence on this switch is deafening. Where is the scrutiny? The tough questions. Harris hasn't done a single sit-down interview since becoming the nominee. Instead, the media is giving her a free pass while ignoring her controversial past, from her statement on fracking to her failed role as the so-called border czar. They're pretending she's a fresh face when she's being a central figure in one of the most criticized administrations in recent history. Let's not forget that this isn't the first time the DNC has pulled a fast one. Back in 2016, they effectively sidelined Bernie Sanders to secure the nomination for Hillary Clinton. And now they're up to their old tricks again. But here's the thing. This kind of political chickenry creates instability not just within the party, but across the entire political landscape. It's no wonder Trump is sticking to his guns. Say what you will about the man, but he's consistent and he knows how to capitalize on the Democrats' missteps. In conclusion, the Democrats' decision to swap out Biden for Harris may have seemed like a smart move in the short term, but it's a gamble that could backfire spectacularly. Trump is already capitalizing on their disarray, and if Harris doesn't step up to the plate soon, the DNC could be in for a rude awakening. This election is shaping up to be one for the history books, and I, for one, am here for the ride.
Last night, he and Trump appeared on the same stage for the first time.
The whole basis of American democracy is the free flow of information. And we know that a government that can silence its opponents has license for any kind of atrocity. And can you think of any time that you can look back in history and say that the people who were censoring were the good guys? They're always the bad guys, because it's always the first step down that slippery slope to totalitarianism.
Earlier in the day, when announcing his withdrawal, Kennedy said that he's been shunned by the media.
My poll numbers reached at times in the high 20s. The DNC-aligned mainstream media networks maintain a near perfect embargo on interviews with me. During his 10-month presidential campaign in 1992, Ross Perot gave 34 interviews on mainstream networks. In contrast, during the 16 months since I declared, ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, and CNN combined gave only 2 live interviews from me. Those networks instead ran a continuous deluge of hit pieces with inaccurate, often vile, pejoratives and defamatory smears. Some of those same networks and colluded with off the debate stage.
I don't doubt that he's been shunned. For the record, he was my guest here 3 times. I have all the angry emails to prove it. 1 live, 2 pre-taped interviews to accommodate his schedule. He was also invited to join us live this morning, and I hosted his wife, actress Cheryl Hines. So, might Kennedy thwart Harris's convention momentum in an election of inches? The answer is maybe. Take a look. This is Nate Silver's Silver Bullet, an average of 2024 general election polls. To appreciate the potential significance, just take a look at Nevada, right at the bottom of your screen. Harris and Trump separated by just 0.1%, with Kennedy polling 4.5% of the vote. In every one of the 7 swing states, Kennedy's vote share exceeds the margin separating Harris and Trump. Where will those voters go? Or will they just stay home? It brings me to today's poll question at Smerconish.com. Does RFK Jr.'s withdrawal and endorsement of Donald Trump change the race?
RFK Jr.'s withdrawal and endorsement of Donald Trump undoubtedly shake up the 2024 race. Let's be clear here. RFK Jr. played a smart and strategic game here. By keeping his name on the ballot in solidly blue and red states, he can still draw votes from both sides, but especially from Kamala Harris. And in key swing states, he's removed his name, ensuring he's not a spoiler, which helps consolidate votes in favor of Trump. This tactic could very well siphon crucial votes away from Harris and redirect them to Trump, particularly since we've already seen a wave of RFK supporters on social media embracing the MAGA movement. This move is more than just a political play. It's a calculated strike that has left the Democrats scrambling. And the media's reaction, they've been quick to suppress RFK's message. Yesterday, CNN even cut away from his speech when he began criticizing the Democratic Party and Kamala Harris and challenged rise to the top of the ticket, is still telling that they are avoiding giving him airtime, especially when he's pointing out the lack of scrutiny Harris has faced in this campaign. Harris has been coasting on vibes with no real policy discussion or accountability for her past statements. The Democrats might try to downplay RFK's endorsement, but deep down, they know this is a significant blow to their chances. In short, this endorsement changes everything. The Democrats can try to sweep it under the rug, but they will have to reckon with the fallout sooner or later. This move isn't just about Trump gaining support. It's about the cracks in the Democratic strategy becoming more apparent. Let's keep an eye on this, folks. And as always, I want to hear what you think. Leave your thoughts in the comments.
Joining me now is Republican strategist Alex Castellanos, co-founder of Purple Strategies, and CNN senior political analyst Ron Brownstein, who's also senior editor at The Atlantic. His latest piece titled, "Why the Blue Wall Looms So Large." Alex, first to you, what's the significance of RFK Jr. getting out and casting his lot with Trump?
Well, I think it's impactful, not just because of the numbers and the math, but because of the narratives that drives the story in the campaign. First of all, it's Trump's an outsider. Guess who else is? RFK. And that makes Kamala Harris a little bit more of the old insider, which is what she's trying to get away from, what she's trying to reinvent herself not to be. But there's something even better for Trump here, and that's the K in RFK, the Kennedy brand, the Kennedy mystique. It still represents a bit of Camelot and the promise of what could be a promise that was interrupted, and I think many Americans hope will be again. Trump's run out of script a little bit. It's the same old show that it used to be. How does he freshen it? How does he appeal to new voters? Well, he's done a little bit of Elon. He's reaching out to young black men. But this gives him, I think, a new way to expand his story. So I think Trump is not a math campaign guy, right? He's not disciplined, as you just said, Michael. He's all about driving entertainment to drive a narrative to create a story, and this, I think, gives him something new to say.
Let's set the stage here. Alex Castellanos made a point that really struck a chord with me. He highlighted that Trump has always been the outsider, even back in 2016, and now RFK Jr. has joined those ranks. After being shunned by the Democratic Party during the primaries, RFK Jr. was essentially pushed to go independent. Despite their effort to stop him, he managed to draw a significant amount of support, not just from independent, but from some Democrat as well. Now, compare that with Kamala Harris, who is seen as an insider, the very definition of the establishment. She's the incumbent now, part of the Biden-Harris administration, and everything she's talking about fixing, whether it's the economy, the border, or other policies, are issues that were neglected under her watch. As the second in command, she's been right there in the room where these decisions were made. Here's where things get interesting, I think. When it comes to policy that are popular, Democrats are quick to attach Kamala Harris' name to them. But when the policy tank, suddenly they distance her from the blame. You've got to love the selective memory, right? But when you dig into the record, you will find that Harris was a key player in pushing through these disastrous policies. Remember, she was the tiebreaker in the Senate the deciding vote on many of these bills that Biden signed into law. Let's not forget the facts are here. Between 2021 and 2022, Kamala Harris cast 15 tie-breaking votes in the Senate, a number that hasn't been seen since John Adams held the office of vice president. Her role as the Senate tie-breaking vote was crucial in passing major legislation, including the $1.9 trillion of COVID-19 relief package and the Inflation Reduction Act. These are the policies that have had mixed results, to say the least. Yet, when it comes to economic fallout hits, it's like she suddenly vanished from the narrative. On the other hand, RFK Jr., once a Democrat darling, found himself on the outs with the establishment simply for challenging the status quo. His pivot to running as an independent speaks volume about the state of the Democratic Party. They rather push him away than engage in meaningful debates. It's ironic because RFK Jr. still resonates with a lot of voters, particularly those who feel abandoned by the current administration's policy. The bottom line is this, I think. While Harris tries to distance herself from the mess she helped create, RFK Jr. and Trump are capitalizing on the fact that they're outsiders, and that outsider status is what resonates with voters who are tired of the same old Washington. The media might give Harris a pass, avoiding the tough question, but the American people won't. As the election nears, it's going to be interesting to see how these dynamics plays out.
Ron Brownstein, your thoughts?
I think the Democrats would pay to have charter RFK to the suburbs of Philadelphia, Detroit, Milwaukee, Madison, Raleigh, Charlotte, Atlanta, and Phoenix to campaign with Donald Trump. Donald Trump, without much attention, has been telling audiences, I will not give a penny, that's his phrase, of federal funding to any school that has any vaccine mandate from kindergarten through college. We know from polling in the Pew Research Center last year that the share of Republicans and white evangelicals, and it was to an evangelical audience that Trump made that pledge, that says parents should be allowed to send their kids to school without vaccines, even if it endangers the health of other people, has doubled in the last 5 years to 40%. 70% of all Americans disagree. The share of college-educated suburban moms who disagree, I'm betting, is closer to 90%. With RFK, I think there is the potential, although it's a small group and I'm not sure how many of them will vote, that some of those disaffected younger men who were parking with RFK might end up with Trump if they vote. You know what the turnout rate is among non-college, non-white men? 49%. You know what the turnout rate is among college-educated white women? 82%. Joe Biden did not hit the ceiling among college white women, and he got about 60% of them in Michigan and Pennsylvania in 2020. Whitmer and Shapiro got about 70% of them. And I just add this to the list with, we have to remind ourselves that the Dobbs decision did not happen until after the 2020 election. But you add Dobbs, you add guns, you add Harris's, just her identity, and I think this latent threat to Trump of being associated with anti-vaccine extremism that Kennedy brings to him. I think on balance, this will end up being more a problem than an asset.
Okay, let me go back to Alex and say, Alex, how would you handle him? Would you give him a seat on the plane? Are you putting RFK Jr. out there with Trump again? And if so, in what settings? By the way, my 2 cents, if I may, I watched all of his speech in withdrawing from the race, and I watched all of the Trump rally. And I know that he gets portrayed, and accurately so, as being anti-vax. But there's much more populism in his appeal when he's talking about healthy food, when he's talking about healthy kids, when he's talking about forever wars. And
Michael,
I know he'll be cast among...
kids.
When he's,
You don't think healthy
Michael,
kids is code? You don't think healthy kids is code?
Hey,
Ron,
I think
Alex, go ahead.
would-
You respond. I want to
Let me
go ahead, Alex. I should not have injected myself. Alex,
No,
how would
I'm
you
glad
handle
you did,
it? Go ahead.
because how would I handle it? But let me also address Ron here. I guess he has nothing to contribute at all, which is why the Democrats and Biden and Harris have been working so hard to shut this guy down, to censor him, to get him out of the process. I think a lot of what you're saying, some of the extremism, is built into his stock price. But what he does is he changes the narrative for Trump. There's a youthful, optimistic factor to that brand, and I wouldn't discount that, Ron. I think you're off base on that. How would I use him? I'd put him on the plane, but not all the time. I think once a week, do an event with him, do something big and powerful. Americans are hungry for politicians who believe in something other than themselves. And that's certainly not Kamala Harris. She just had a convention where she not only just did plastic surgery on herself, she like ripped out her DNA and inserted some new stuff, and then did nothing to explain to the American people why that occurred. It's like somebody who just shows up on your doorstep that you never, and just says, oh, I've always loved you, when they hated you yesterday and gave you no rationale. It's a very cynical campaign, and I think the more exposure it gets, the more selfish it's going to become. And I think if on the other side, Trump can take advantage of the Kennedy opportunity to expand his vision of the future, which frankly is hard for Trump. All he's got to say about the future is, let's make America great again. But if now he's got somebody who can talk about children, children's health, clean water. When's the last time you heard a Republican campaign talking about any of those things? Use them judiciously, a little seasoning on the main entree.
I think these assessments are definitely right and very right. Adding RFK Jr. to the mix does bring a fresh angle that's more relevant to today's concern, especially when it comes to issues like kids' health and chronic diseases. This is something that resonates beyond the traditional Make America Great Again message, which, while powerful in 2016, needed a new dimension for 2024. By addressing the concerns of families and bringing voices that questioning some of the narrative around health and vaccines, RFK Jr. broadens the appeal of the Trump campaign to include those who might not have been initially drawn to Trump but are concerned about these issues. When it comes to Kamala Harris, her sudden emergence as a central figure after years of being in the background is quite revealing. The media's attempt to repackage her as a leader who's ready to take the reins is superficial at best. For 3.5 years, she's been the vice president, but there is little to show in terms of leadership or tangible achievements. The facade can only last so long. And as the election get closer, people will start looking beyond the identity politics and focus on more on competence and track record, two areas where Harris has struggled. This race is shaping up to be one of stark contrast, and the message each side brings to the table will play a crucial role in how voters align themselves. As the guy pointed out, it's not about identity. It's about who's best equipped to lead the country through the challenges ahead. Let me hear your comment below in the comment section.